Thank you so much. And it's great to be here, and it's great to be with our Irish contingent, and particularly with the public health nurses section. And thank you for inviting me. It's funny, really, because when I was asked to do this, I thought it was about my global work, and aging kind of came later. And then the other day, I just got the agenda and it said menopause and positive aging. And I said, well, whatever about positive aging, menopause, I'm not going to do. There are more experts on that than I, even though I could give personal experiences on that. So I thought what I'd do is I would take you through a whistle-stop tour on a little bit about what I do, a little bit about particularly an issue that's close to my heart, and that's retention of older nurses in the workforce. And I think that's important to all of us in the future, particularly because in Europe and in North America, in the next 10 years, it's estimated that 4.7 million nurses will retire. And that's really serious, but I will talk about that a little bit later. So just a very quick introduction to you about ICN. It was set up in 1899 by very visionary women who decided that, you know, they should get nurses together to share information across the world and try and support each other and to be the voice of nursing at a global level. And that was at a time when they were actually seeking the vote for women. And it was at a time when a lot of women couldn't work, and even pushing to start nurse training was difficult. So now is at the stage that we have over 130, I think it's about 137 national nurses associations now. We represent 27 million nurses worldwide. And it's the largest nursing organization in the world. And of course, just to say that sometimes you wonder, what value is a global organization to you, or what value is a European organization to you? And until you're in it, you really don't know. But I suppose one of the things that struck me very forcibly was when Ireland went through its economic crisis, and all the cuts that were made to healthcare and nursing and all of that area. But it wasn't dictated by government. It was dictated by the World Bank. It was dictated by the IMF and by the European banks. So wherever we were getting the funding was the people who dictated what we could and couldn't do, insofar as down to the fact of recruitment and retention of nurses and salaries and conditions. And that made me very, I suppose, aware of the influence that we have to have at global level as well as at national level. So that's where I'm coming from on this. So the facts currently about healthcare, as you know, every health system needs transforming. Every, not just the Irish one, not the Irish strategic sláinte care, but that was seen very much when COVID-19 arrived. There was no health system that was prepared for a pandemic. No health system was prepared. And we have to do better for the next pandemic, because I have no doubt that will happen in the future. We currently are estimating that if nothing is done, we will have 13 million too few nurses. That's half of the current workforce. That's very serious, because we're already short. We're already short. Nurses have been seen to be absolutely exhausted from COVID-19 and from the work. So, and I'll say a little bit more about how nurses' lives have been, and healthcare workers have been put at risk. And, you know, how much more can they take is my worry. And in May, the WHO estimated that 115,000 healthcare workers have died from COVID-19 across the world. So let's say a little bit more about that. 115,000 in May. We know that that's an underestimated, because all the countries are not collecting systematically and standardized data on the number of healthcare workers that die. And not alone that, the ones that are becoming infected are dividing it down by profession, like nurses, doctors, healthcare workers, and whatever. And if we don't do that, how will we know how the infection has been transmitted? Has it been from nurse to nurse, nurse to doctor, nurse to patient, patient to nurse, relatives, or whatever? And we have to do that in order to stop that transmission and also to protect our nurses. We know that many died from the lack of protection, the lack of protective equipment, and the lack of support measures, the lack of staff, and we've seen it all over the world. To put it in perspective, because people I suppose, look at 115,000. It's like we look at TV at people dying every day. But if you put it in perspective and you say that that equates to a plane crash every day since COVID-19 started. Now, if that happened, what you would see is an absolute shutdown of the aviation industry. You would have nearly a shutdown of the world, and you would have major investigations. And that's what I find absolutely unacceptable. The vast majority of the infections and deaths were in the Americas, both North and South America, which is absolutely unbelievable in a high-income country, a country that's supposed to be way ahead in medicine and strategy and infection control and prevention. The only reason that I show this is that currently I have been asking the Director General, because you have to work at WHO level, at the G20 level, the G7 level, the UN. And this was a picture taken in Geneva with a lot of nurses. And the picture with that you see down there is all of the healthcare workers' little pictures in that picture, thousands and thousands of little pictures. And what they were seeking was, the G20 were meeting in Geneva at that time. They were seeking to influence their decisions about investing in healthcare workers, and particularly nurses. The first State of the World's Nursing Report, chaired by ICN, it was the first ever report from 191 countries that told us the state of nursing in every country throughout the world. It's the only report that gives us evidence to support what we need to seek as investment. And the recommendations were investment in the workforce, building the capacity, retaining the nurses, ensuring that nurses get into leadership positions, advanced practice, and to be in policy areas everywhere that policy is. And we don't see that. We didn't even see that during COVID. Nurses were the ones that were organizing. They were the ones that were leading. They were the ones that were doing all the work in relation to caring for patients, but yet they weren't at the table in strategy or in the task force or on the media about it. That's as much, I think, a gender-related issue as much a nursing-related issue as health-related issue. So I think it's something that we really have to get a handle on. As I said, the State of the World's Nursing Report came out. That said that we were already 6 million nurses short across the world. We ourselves then investigated that data and found out that out of the next 10 years, 4.7 million nurses were planning to retire, particularly from Europe and North America, because that's where the aging workforce is. Our latest research says that many nurses wish to get out of nursing, and up to 10% may get out of nursing because they're burnt out, they're exhausted, they don't want to stay in nursing. And from the specialist areas, from community areas, from all of those areas. So we did another report, Aging Well, and policies to support older nurses at work. And that's what I really want to talk about. These are the policies that we brought in, 10-point plan to support older nurses at work. Because if in Europe and North America, nurses are getting older, we want to retain them in the workforce, whether it be in community, whether it be in public health, whether it be in hospital, wherever it be. We need to retain that knowledge base, that competency, and we need to provide different opportunities for them. and we're not good at incentivizing them. We saw that countries all over the world, including Ireland, asked nurses to come back into the workforce, and they did. But did we retain them? No. Did we provide them with ongoing education? No. Did we provide them with incentives to keep them for flexible hours, whatever they wanted to do in relation to mentorship, preceptorship, any of those kind of things? Or did we look at occupational health for them? You know, do they have needs that couldn't put them into a physical capacity, but could put them into other opportunities? And there's lots of opportunities that nurses can go into that doesn't require major physical work, but it does require competence, and it does require experience. And you will see that particularly in your own area of work. And of all the areas that was most important during COVID-19, it was community and public health. Health promotion, disease prevention, early intervention, education, all of that area that public health nurses are central to. But yet we don't see an emphasis on that. And it really bothers me that all the funding goes into hospitals and not into community and health promotion, disease prevention. So this was a 10-point plan, which next week I go to Berlin for a World Health Summit, and I will be bringing all of this up in relation to incentives to retain nurses in the workforce. These are some of the case histories that we get from nurses across the world, great things that they are doing. And as you see on the left-hand side, this is a nurse in England on a radio program giving information about health issues, about COVID-19 to vulnerable and isolated groups that English isn't their first language, and probably some of them don't even speak English. So they take nurses who are from different backgrounds, have different languages, and interview them. And I think this is great. And we should be more involved in education, different profiles through the media, through television, through radio. And of course, up above, you see the exercise continuing outside, which is great. And down below, you see nurses teaching children about washing hands during COVID. All of these things we should be all involved in, no matter where we are. And then there's much more case histories. There's a nurse who works in women's health in the community as an A&P. Great initiatives that are happening all over, that nurses show that the nurses are leading the way in developing different healthcare systems, but they need to be listened to. And now I'll say a little bit about personal experience. And as you see, don't let aging get you down. It's too hard to get back up. And very recently, I was asked about retirement. And, you know, what did I think about retirement? Because some of my cousins, some different friends want to retire, and they can't wait to retire. And they say, okay, so, you know, what do we do? Do we take time out? Do we, you know, get into something? And what I would say is you get into something that you enjoy. It mightn't be necessarily be the work that you came from, but it might be something you always wanted to do. And you get into that. But take your time in actually thinking about what you would like to do. And for me, I'm not the greatest at physical activity. I drag myself out to walk, that's for sure, and I have to do that every day. But the other things that you can do is you need, I think, to keep your brain active, that's for sure. And I didn't expect to keep my brain so active because I didn't plan on being so challenged during the last 4.5 years, because it's been challenging, it's been exciting, it's been informative. I've learned a lot as well as done a lot, and it's been hard work. I probably have worked harder over the last 4.5 years than I've worked all my life and had more challenges. But it does keep you young, it does keep you active, and it does keep you involved. Would I like a little bit more time? Yes, I would like a little bit more time. The other thing that it happens is that you have to look after your health. And I don't mean to be in any way, I suppose, morbid about that, but in relation to just general checkups and just general screenings, all of those, I think those are important don't wait until you have pain and ache and it's too late. Just go and get those. Those are easy. And I'm not a health freak. I'm not somebody that goes to GP often or anything else like that. But those kind of things, I think, are important. Meeting friends, keeping in contact with friends is so important, and making time. And during COVID, it's hard because you couldn't have friends in, you couldn't go out, but you still have to keep in contact to keep that contact up. The other things that I think are important are that you have to think about planning for the future. And a lot of the times we, kind of leave work and then, there's a gap and you wonder what to do. And then people get worried because they've been working so hard and suddenly they're out and they haven't, I could spend all day doing very little, getting up late, going for a walk, maybe taking a late shower. And by the time it's evening, I still have done pretty much nothing. I could read a book or watch television, so it's easy to get into that habit. So I think you have to really make sure that you have some kind of routine. I could easily do without routine, but when you have to do it, you do it and you get a lot in and you feel much better. The one thing I would say is, and it's come up recently, and that is about planning for death. And I know that sounds crazy, but because I have been at a number of funerals where there has been actual, I suppose, difference between family members about what should happen, because one person thinks their mother or their father or their sister or whoever wanted this and somebody else thinks that, and then there's arguments and there's division and it causes terrible strife. And I've said to, and it's happened very recently in my own family, and I've said to people of my own family, I said, for goodness sake, write down what you want. Don't leave it to the people behind you to have, rows over it, because that's not good enough. And look at it like, you're going to the bank and you're taking out an account and you're doing it while you're healthy, not when you're ill, because that's too late. So that was one of the things that really struck me that we had to do, and we're not good at doing. And there's two books that I think any of you should read. One is, it's by, Medicine Can Be Cured. And the guy is an Irish guy, Seamus O'Mahony, and The Way We Die Now. Very good books. He's a guy from Cork, but worked in the NHS in England for years, and well worth a read, that's for sure. So do read those. Just a quick comment about menopause, because I'm not going down that road. Recently, I was listening to a radio program that a lot of women were ringing up about the menopause and the issues they had, and that they couldn't get anywhere with their GPs and nobody was listening to them and they didn't realize all the issues. Neither did I know all of the issues that were connected with menopause. And I went to my GP once or twice, different GPs, about going on HRT, and no, not at all. No, I didn't need to go to it and all the rest of it, until I went to, I transferred to Wicklow from where I was, and I joined a women's clinic. And it was so different. It was totally different. It was like night and day. They understood, automatically put me on HRT and that. And very recently, I just said to them, I was listening to this program on radio, and apparently the same thing is happening with people out there, that nobody is listening to them about their symptoms of menopause and they're dismissing it. And I said, I wonder if it's, male doctors as opposed to female doctors, I don't know. And she said, following the program, they had nearly 400 inquiries in the next week of people wanting to come into the clinic. And she said, we can't cope with this. So that's just how difficult it is. Sláinte care. Sláinte care for me was the best strategy for Ireland and for what should happen. I was really excited about it because it talked about universal healthcare. It talked about the equality between, the rich and the poor, or the people who had private healthcare and people who had public healthcare, and that nobody should be waiting. And it focused on community. And I always believed the focus should have been on community, no doubt in my mind. And of course, we had the Sláinte care implementation advisory group. And I think the real issue was around, and, you know, I talked to Liam Dorn, who was on it with me, and we were, you know, all about, and we wrote the letters and all of that kind of thing. But the real issue came, and it hit me in April, that there was no real, I suppose, appetite for, or hadn't thought about, the regional authorities. Because I wrote in and asked the question, well, how is this going to work with the HSE? How is it going to work with the Department of Health? Who is going to have the funding? Who is going to have the decision making? Is there going to be two parallel systems until it's working? Are they going to divide up the HSE, who now have a board? What is going to happen? Because, you know, unless you know all those questions, what's the time frame for it? So, and as you know, what happened, that the advisor group were dismissed, really. And so we are not quite sure what's happening. But for all of us, we have to push. It is the strategy that I believe in, I think that everybody believes in, and it is the strategy that will promote more of your work in public health in the community. And it is the community. We need prevention. We don't need to wait until we get to the hospital to have specialist care and treatment. We need to have it before that. And I don't want, when I am sick and dying, to be brought in to have all sorts of medical interventions. I don't. I want to be pain-free, and I want to be as well as I possibly can, but without major intervention. So that's why I believe so firmly in the community, public health, the prevention, and that's where the public health nurses can have a major influence. We heard already about the postnatal areas, and you'll hear about menopause, you'll hear about women, but also in all the NCDs, the respiratory, all the chronic diseases that we talk about. And that's where I think public health nurses play a huge part. This is, of course, we had the 2 years, the International Year of the Nurse and the Midwife, which was 2020, and we didn't get around to celebrating that. We'll be celebrating it at conference, the 2nd to the 4th of November. And the one thing is, we're tired of applause. We need investment. That's what we need. And we need to call on governments to account. And I've been just talking to the Director General about collecting data post-COVID on nurses, retention and recruitment of nurses across the world. And I'm hoping that perhaps he will do it, because we need that evidence to shame the governments into investment, because I don't think anything else will work. I think the emphasis will be now on paying back the money for COVID, and that worries me. So I think we all have to work together. It's the only way. We have to work at global level, we have to work at regional level, and we have to work at national level, and we have to work together if we want to improve the conditions for our nurses and to keep them in the practice, which I firmly believe in. And just one final word is that I am proud to be a nurse. I've never been so proud to be a nurse in my life as I have been over the last 2 years, and proud of the way that nurses led the way in COVID-19 in every way across the world. So thank you for all the work you do. Thank you for listening to me. And this is the conference 2nd to the 4th of November. I hope you can join.
Thank you very much indeed, Annette, for that wonderful presentation this morning. Actually, Annette, you're a great advocate, I must say, for those of us that are aging in nursing. Just a little question there, and it is staggering the number that we'll have large deficit of nursing like in 2030, and that's only a few years away. Yeah. And it is really, and we do need that investment in nursing, and particularly we need as well, you mentioned it there in your speech this morning, your presentation this morning, that yes, nurses did work, we upskilled and we were redeployed, but we were never at the table where we made the big decisions. We definitely need this, certainly, and I'm glad to see ICN coming out, but we need their governments, as you would say, to get involved in that, in getting nurses around making top policy decisions as well as, and strategies as well. Maybe that will come from our department, pushing that forward. What do you think yourself on that? I think there's a number of issues, and I've been trying to work this out, and I've been working now with
Women in Global Health, which is an organization set up about 5 years ago by a medical woman in the States. And we've been working very closely, and they're setting up a hub here in Ireland, and I'm going to get involved with that. And we have been communicating back and forwards because they feel that there's 70% of the nursing workforces are women, and yet only 25% of the whole lot are in any kind of leadership positions. And so it goes right across the board. I think there's two issues to it. I think one of the issues is that we're seen as carers, and carers are taken to be kind of voluntary. They look after the elderly people, they look after the children, they look after everybody that's around, and they do their work as well. So, and that's unpaid work. And until that's recognized as not as being work that you need to pay for, I think it'll be difficult for us to get the right recognition that we deserve. But that doesn't mean that we stop the fight. And it is a fight. There's no doubt in my mind. We're against challenges and we have to fight. But we have to be constantly pushing the boat out to get on to different committees. Like, I'll give you an example. When I talk about WHO, I have made it my business to ring the DG rather than look at any other of the people. Either he takes my call or he doesn't. If he takes my call, then that's fine. But, you know, what have you got to lose? That's the way I look at it. You have nothing to lose. Either somebody wraps you on the knuckles because you didn't abide by protocol, but generally nothing else will happen. Generally they won't, because, you know, but you have to, you know, push yourself out. And, you know, nobody will say anything to you. Just to finish on a funny story. When I don't think you were there, Eilish, in Barcelona, I was, there's a little, before the conference, there's kind of a get together with all the dignitaries, you know, the usual drinks and that kind of thing. And I was standing beside Princess Muna, who's a very nice lady. And she was talking to me, and the next thing, somebody brought her a chair and she's sitting down. Now, there's no other chairs around. And you know, when you're talking down to somebody, it doesn't seem right. And I can't do it very diplomatically or, you know, with the greatest grace. So I'm trying to, but I can't. So I sit on the side of the chair, and they're just thinking, oh my God, this is what you do with friends. This is not what you do with royalty. You sit on the side of the chair. And I don't know whether to get up or sit down. So I just turned around to say to her, and I said, I don't think I should be sitting on the arm of your chair. And she said to me, she just laughed and she said, did I say anything? Well, within 2 seconds, there was another chair for me. Nobody said anything to me, but there was another chair arrived from somewhere, I don't know where.
Yeah.
But it's just to tell you that, like, even if you do things, who is going to do anything to you? They're not.
Yeah. Yeah, we're at the end of the day, we're all human, and we're all,
absolutely.
You know, and you know, I suppose as we do get more mature in age, we are a little bit more forceful, and you know, we've nothing to lose at this stage, you know, of our lives. We just get on with it. Just you know, I'd like that 10-point plan as well. And just my last question, our 10-point plan really would be that, you know, you're looking at all of those, and yes, the respect for the older nurse. Yeah, I would be one of those, and I was very lucky that I am in that pre-retirement initiative now. Yeah. But that has been stopped now. And this is where we're losing nurses, the older nurses, the experience of nurses. So, you know, we really should be pushing, and I know from the union's point of view, we are pushing forward, trying to get this, but it is there sitting in the department, not there. So we will be pushing it forward again. I think it is such vitally important that we try and keep our, you know, older, mature, you know, nurses there. And I know that there's younger nurses than myself that are leaving the profession. That's out. But the mentorship, you know, we have to go from novice to expert, and these are the expertise we're losing as well. So, you know, how do you think we should be? Yeah.
One of the things that I think that people don't realize, like, if you're in a management position and you're stressed out, management is stress, you know, particularly in nursing. And maybe people would stay if they were, I don't say demoted, but that they got a different level, but not management. I think, you know, I know that when you're in your 60s, you don't particularly want to be stressed out with all the management, you know, responsibilities. And there's no reason why they couldn't give a lesser post to people to stay on. And there's no reason why the finance department or the accountants department or whoever deals with you couldn't talk to the nurses that are leaving and say, like, you know, this is the amount of money you need to, you know, make you comfortable for this. So you only need to know work X amount of hours, and there's so much tax, you know, if you do this, you won't be paying that much tax. But that kind of individual, you know, get together, it's so important. And you know, it makes me boil, you know, that it's so much that could be done to incentivize nurses to stay, and they would like to stay. I know an awful lot of them would like to stay if there was, I suppose,
incentivized systems there to stay, and
recognition of them, you know.
So Annette, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning, and also your personal experience of you know, the older nurse in working, and you know, you're a real advocate for those of us who will be retiring. And I know that even on our committee here today, there's people who have retired but still quite actively involved in our section, and it does keep you going. And again, thank you very much.